Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the FICOMPAS Jam Sessions podcast. I'm Mario Guido and I will be your host today. Today we welcome Silvia Michelini, Director at the European Commission's Directorate-General for Agriculture and Rural Development. With Silvia, we will talk about the adoption by Member States of the Common Agricultural Policy Strategic Plans. We will also discuss the role that financial instruments under the European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development, the EAFRD, can play in the future. Welcome, Silvia, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mario, and good morning to all listeners. And thanks to FICOMPAS for organizing this second podcast on EAFRD financial instruments.
So, Silvia, the trialogues between the European co-legislators on the legislative framework for the new CAP are at a final stage, and the discussions are expected to be finalized before the summer. Could you please tell us more about the state of play in the preparation of the CAP strategic plans?
Indeed, Mario, we are at a key point for the CAP reform process, and we hope to close the agreement very soon. And in the meantime, we are working very intensively with the Member States for the preparation of their CAP strategic plans. These CAP strategic plans are very important for us. They are strategic documents where the Member States are going to present the assessment of their needs, their strategies, and also the mix of interventions they want to use to reach their objectives, of course, which are the ones of the Common Agricultural Policy. So these strategic plans are not only planning tools, they are also strategic tools where we want to see the ambition of Member States in reaching the CAP objectives. And also we want to see a particular focus on environment and climate in line with the European Green Deal. Now, if you ask me about the state of play of this preparation in the different member states, I would tell you that it's different depending on the different member states. But what is sure is that we are working with all of them in the framework of a dialogue, which we call a structured dialogue. And this is because we want to work intensively early on in this informal phase. You know, the timing is very stretched because we need to work informally this year. And at the end of the year, we expect each member state to submit to the Commission their draft plans. And then next year, we are going to work on the assessment of the plan, and we want to adopt them by the end of next year. So from 1st of January 2023, the new Common Agricultural Policy will be there in force.
Thank you, Silvia. It's nice to see that Member States are already working on the new programming period. From your side in DG AGRI, how do you help Member States to prepare for the new CAP strategic plans? And in particular, how important are the recommendations that DG AGRI is providing to the Member States?
We are doing quite a lot of things to support the Member States in this process. Indeed, we have installed this structured dialogue I was mentioning before. So we are in real close contacts with the representatives of the Member States. We have organized many workshops, expert groups to support them in the preparation of the CAP plans, and we will continue to do so throughout the next period. And indeed, you recall the recommendations to the Member States. Last December, the Commission adopted recommendations to each and every member state in relation to the Common Agricultural Policy objectives. We analyzed the situation in each member state, and we came up with suggestions on how to cope with the different elements of the Common Agricultural Policy objectives so as to help member states identify their needs and the mix of interventions, but also to help us in a way in the assessment of the Common Agricultural Policy CAP plans when they will be submitted.
Regarding the new programming period, a lot was said about the new delivery model. Can you tell us more about this new approach?
I would say a key word for this new delivery model of the Common Agricultural Policy is performance. Indeed, we focus on performance orientation of the future plans. We want them to be based on a sound intervention logic. We want also to ensure the member states fixed their objectives and also the way they will reach them. This may sound not particularly new for rural development because in a way we are used to strategic programming there. But it's a novelty with regard to the overall Common Agricultural Policy, as most of the Common Agricultural Policy tools will be under the CAP plan. Another element I would say is also the flexibility which is left to the member states, more flexibility than in the past to design the mix of intervention needed to reach the objectives of the common agricultural policy. And also, I would say a lot of synergies are gained in this process between what we call the first pillar of the common agricultural policy, so mostly direct payments, but also markets, and what we call the second pillar, rural development. For example, we are looking at more synergies in the area of what we call the green architecture, so the focus on climate and environment, but also, for example, on generational renewal.
You mentioned a very important point, generational renewal. We talked about this a lot in our recent FICOMPAS webinars. What role will young farmers play in the future, especially in the context of the long-term vision for rural areas? And would you agree that member states should set up financial instruments specifically for young farmers?
Indeed, Mario, this is a very important point. We want to increase the number of young people entering farming. We are not happy with the current numbers. If we look at them, farmers below the age of 35 years are just 5% of all managers, while those above 55 years are about 58%. And we want to change that. Therefore, we want to help member states devote more efforts to these important objectives, because more young people entering farming means also more young people in rural areas. So this also means having more lively rural areas. So we have asked the member states to devote a share of amounts of funds under direct payment to interventions which are focusing on young farmers. And they can decide whether to use the first pillar tools, top-up payments, or installation grants under the second pillar, or both of them in the perfect mix they find opportune based on their specific situation. And indeed, I see, as you mentioned, a strong role for financial instruments. One of the main difficulties for young farmers is the access to finance. And therefore, I see really an important role for financial instruments and responding to the concrete needs identified by the member states following the analysis they will do. Here, I would like to refer to an important study which was prepared last year on the needs of financing on agriculture and agro-food sector. And there we see really that there is an important gap and that we can help with financial instruments. And already now, young farmers are a target group in our financial instruments, in the sense that they are often given better conditions, for example, lower interest rates. Indeed, the young farmers and generational renewal are also key issues in the framework of an important political initiative which will be adopted very soon in the next few days. It's the Commission communication on the long-term vision for rural areas. It's an initiative for which our Commissioner Wojciechowski, in charge of agriculture, is in the lead, working together with Commissioner Ferreira, who is in charge of cohesion, and also under the coordination of Vice President Suica, who is responsible for demography and democracy. And indeed, this Commission communication will set out the vision, so what we want rural areas to become in the perspective of 2040 and all the different steps to get there. And indeed, generational renewal is going to be also important, as we know that this is one of the challenges of rural areas. And this is not something which we are developing in Brussels. We've actually opened up a wide consultation of stakeholders and citizens. We've organized a lot of events. So this is a real participative process in which we have involved citizens as part of this process, which is a real bottom-up one.
Very interesting. We look forward to this new communication then. Support for young farmers is very important, and it's nice to see the commitment of DG AGRI in helping fresh energies entering the sector. The EU Green Deal and the promotion of a green transition are key priorities for the Union, including under the CAP. Digital transition is also another very relevant objective. How do you think the EU rural development policy will contribute to these goals? And will financial instruments supported under the CAP play a role to help achieve these policy objectives?
Mario, you refer to the Green Deal, which is indeed the important growth strategy of the EU, and agriculture and the Common Agricultural Policy will do its part. Last year, we published two strategies, the biodiversity strategy and the farm to fork strategy, which look at how to make agriculture and agro-food sector greener, and also how to make food system fairer healthier, and also more environmental friendly. We set up a number of targets linked to this green transition, but we also looked at the aspect of the digital transition because we want the green and digital transitions to go together hand in hand. To give you an example, for the green side, we propose a target of reaching 25% of areas covered by organic farming by the year 2030. And for the digital transition, we have an important aim to have all rural areas under access with fast broadband by 2025. So once in place, the future common agricultural policy will further boost the green and digital transition. And we have several instruments for that. We have area-based payments looking at practices by farmers, but we also have investments and other tools which can be used for that. And in this context, I really believe that financial instruments are there to help. They really enable the potential of agriculture to respond to this ambitious target. For example, they can finance technological investments, research, innovation. They can help looking at riskier types of projects involving, for example, digital solutions, energy-saving machineries, equipments, and so on. And we have seen a lot of take-up of financial instruments in this area, and we hope to see even more with the programming of financial instruments in the future Common Agricultural Policy strategic plans. And for sure, we need that. Last year, we prepared a study looking at the financing gap in agriculture and agri-food sector, and we looked at a figure which is between 20 and 47 billion of euro for agriculture in the EU. And this was before the pandemic. And you can imagine that the pandemic crisis has not really helped to fill the gap. So indeed, we need more financial instruments in the future.
For sure, there is a lot of work to do under the new CAP, but at the same time, it's nice to see that there are many interesting novelties that can help open up new opportunities. Now, looking at the current programming period, we know that there is a transitional period for the EAFRD programs with rules that have been already approved and are in place. Now, I would like to ask you, what impact do these rules have on already existing financial instruments?
Indeed, we set up transitional rules to cover this year and next year so that support to farmers can continue waiting until the Common Agricultural Policy CAP plans to kick in 2023. So we have also new funds, of course, to support this transition, funds which come from the Multi-Annual Financial Framework, the MFF, but which also come from the Next Generation EU with a direct injection into the rural development funding. Therefore, with this transition, financial instruments can continue to operate during this year and next year. And this is very important because I believe that continuing to work on this will lay the foundation for the future place of financial instruments in the CAP post 2020. Therefore, financial instruments indeed are there, and we see a lot of things happening even during this period. For example, in Greece, there was an operation starting in March this year. We have also countries like Bulgaria, Lithuania, and Latvia, where financial instruments will become operational later this year. So I see this transitional period as a very positive period with a positive impact also for the future. At the moment, we have 31 financial instruments operating and 760 million euros public resources programmed for financial instruments. More than 5,100 guarantees and loans are given out, supporting 645 million euros of underlying loans, a number that more than tripled since 2019. We've also seen increased demand by farmers for both investment and working capital since mid-2020. Some of these investments have already a very high leverage level. For example, in the case of one financial instrument in Italy, Friuli Venezia Giulia, we have already a leverage of 20. And in another case in France, we are close to 10. So our expectation, which is this important leverage, is really to manage to reach 2 billion euros of underlying loans by the end of this period, which would be really a great success for the policy and a very good foundation for the future. So this experience for me is vital, and we believe that member states, with this positive feedback and positive momentum, can continue to use financial instruments in the future. As I said, farmers' demands are permanently growing.
Thank you very much indeed, Silvia, for these very interesting insights and for sharing your expectations for the future. It was a real pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you, Mario, for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the new Fee Compass program and what we can do to facilitate the use of financial instruments under the CAP.
Thank you again, Silvia, and a big thank you also to our listeners for tuning in today for this new episode of the Fee Compass Jam Sessions. If you have any questions or you want to suggest a new podcast topic, please send us an email at info@ficompass.eu. Don't forget to follow us on social media and to subscribe to the podcast on the main podcasting platforms. I wish you a very nice day.